Every father should remember one day his son will follow his example, not his advice. Charles Kettering. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Okay. So today, Fridays are Dad Talk days. Since I've been working on my laptop and making some upgrades and some repairs, I have neglected to schedule any dads on purpose. That way, in case something goes awry, I'm not wasting somebody else's time. At least a guest is in that terms. I don't want to. I want to make sure that my guests, if they show up, they get up, they rearrange their schedule and all that good stuff to be on the show. That we don't have any hiccups. So I've been waiting until I feel confident, and I'm pretty confident on how things are going. So I anticipate having a dad on next Friday. However, when I don't have a dad on, well, then I find a subject to talk about that's dad related, kind of give you my thoughts. And as it turned out, the internet delivered. So um, there's this, if you're not familiar with Reddit, they have all these subreddits. You can basically think of them as like different forums. And there's one called Am I the A-hole? It basically what people do is they'll get on there and they'll tell like some life story like, so there I was doing this thing, there I was sitting at the bar, minding my own business. The next thing I knew, I was fighting somebody, right? Am I the a-hole? And then like everybody chimes in and they give them their thoughts. So a story went around about a dad, a son, and his nephew, and then also his daughter. And that generated a lot of conversation on the internet. Like the post so I didn't see the original Reddit comment because I'm not on Reddit. I'm on X, Twitter, if you remember from the days of old. And so what sometimes people will do is they'll cross post. They will screenshot it, post it, and then everybody talks about it somewhere else on some other different platform. So that's what happened here. And this particular one was not the original. This was just somebody else comment, kind of presenting it for everybody. And it got like 2,000 comments, almost 3,000 reposts, 31,000 likes. Like suffice it to say, it was the talk of the town on X which Elon Musk hopes to make the basically town square. So it was the talk of the town. So let's dive right into it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to read the entirety of it. It's a fair amount, but if I don't read it, then you may not get the proper context for for commentary. And in this particular case, I could trim it down. I could do a lot of things, but I think it's better to just read it as the author wrote it. Now, the author is the mom. She's writing about something that happened with her husband and her daughter and her son and their nephew, or their daughter and their son and their nephew. And so and there's no context from the dad. So we're taking a one sided view here, and that's not to kind of lay the groundwork to trash mom later. That's just saying like that's how these things work. When you go and post on Reddit, it's you, and chances are either you were communicating from your perspective, the other person's side of the story, or you're only delivering your side of the story, right? Like that's just how it works. So I'm going to read it in its entirety, and then I will show you my comment, and then we'll go from there. So let's get into it. Let's pop that up on the screen here. So let's see here. Here we go. All right. So it says, I have, and I'm reading now. I have two kids, John, who is 13, and Kelsey, who is 11. My daughter Kelsey has always been a tomboy and prefers hanging out with her older brother and my husband. She goes fishing and watches and plays sports with them. Meanwhile, I enjoy gardening and baking. No biggie to me. I love their bond, and I'm happy she's close with her brother and her dad. My husband's only sister is a single mom and has recently moved to our state with her son, Michael, who is 12. My husband has been talking about planning a quote guys trip this summer with him, John, and Michael. While my husband was discussing with John, I could see Kelsey looking visibly sad because she wasn't included. Later, I told my husband that Kelsey should go too and that there's no reason to exclude her. He said he just wants some guy time with his son and nephew and that men need to have, quote, their time away from women. I took offense to that comment, which led to an argument between us. I told him that Kelsey needs to go, otherwise, I won't approve of money being taken out of our family vacation budget to exclude some of our family. My sister in law texted me saying, I'm being controlling and ruining a good experience for the boys by being petty. I told her I'm not being petty. I just don't want my kid feeling left out. So that was the first Reddit post that the mom made. She made another one later, and I'm going to read that one to you. So, and it's about the same length. So let me read that real quick. All right. So here's this other one up on the screen. And it goes like this. You can read some of the details if you go through my post history. Essentially, my husband has decided he wants to have a guys only trip this summer with my son, 13 male, and nephew, 12 male. My daughter, 11 female, is a tomboy who is into sports and fishing and extremely close with her brother and dad. And the three of them often spent a lot of time together. My husband and I discussed this, and I insisted my daughter be included, but he mentioned that he really wants this time with his son and nephew without any women present. I eventually gave in on the boys only trip, but warned him that our daughter would be hurt and it was up to him entirely to fix it. He promised me he would. Oops, did I click? There we go. Oh, did I make a mistake here? Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Ever since my husband told her she couldn't go, my daughter's behavior has changed. She no longer hangs out with her brother playing video games, and she has been extremely distant with my husband. Just this past week, during the Super Bowl, while my son and husband were watching the game, my daughter was tucked away in her room. Watching the Super Bowl together has always been a tradition for the three of them to do together. I'm not into sports ball, but this year my daughter didn't join them. I asked her if she was okay, and she gave a yeah and continued reading a book. My husband noticed this behavior and tried to cheer her up by telling her he would plan something really cool, just the two of them, but our daughter told him she didn't want to do anything. A couple of days later, my daughter needed to be picked up early from school for a dentist appointment. My husband said he would pick her up, but she texted me asking, quote, please, mom, can you pick me up and bring me? End quote. My daughter also has been getting the school bus in the morning instead of catching a ride with my husband and son, which she typically does. Now my husband has been complaining to me about our daughter, saying he's done everything to make it up to her and that I need to step in. I told him she would be hurt by him excluding her from the trip, and it's entirely his fault. She's icing him out. He says we should be a team and try to fix this together, but he's the one who caused this hurt. So it shouldn't be on me to fix it. It's starting to affect our relationship now too. Am I the a-hole? All right. So that's the story. That's what happened according to the mom. Now here is what I said. We put this up on the screen, and it was pretty brief. All right. Let's see. Why are you not hello? Did I get it? Give me a second here. Why I don't know why it doesn't see. I might have made a mistake on this. Give me just a moment. I will get that up on the screen here really, really quickly. All right. And bada boom, bada bing. There we are. All right. So what I said was dad was right and mom was wrong. There's a family time, mom and kids time, dad and kids time, mom and dad time, kids time, and yes, guy and girl time. So that's what I said initially. And I stick to that, actually. You might be surprised, but but there's always a but. Otherwise, why do the show, right? Like if it was just going to be that simple, then I wouldn't need to do the show. But a friend of mine chimed in and I got to thinking about it and I reread the story with my friend's thoughts in mind. And I was like, hmm. I was like, all right. So it's kind of tempered my view. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to intermission because, I want to leave a cliffhanger here before we go to commercial, like a TV show. And I will go to we'll do some comments here. I'll read some comments, and then we're going to go to intermission. And when I come back, I'll read to you what my friend wrote, and then I'll tell you my final thoughts on this matter. So let's take a look at some of the comments here and see what you guys are up to. And by the way, I did finally get that music for the background working. So now we got a little bit of, commentary background. So that's pretty exciting, I think. All right. So let's see what we got here. Let's see here. Do. I'm looking through the comments. So it's interesting doing the comments. I just want to tell people this. If I don't get to your comments, it's either because I didn't see it or I didn't necessarily recognize it as something that I should respond to. Because sometimes there's chat going on that's directed at me. Sometimes there's chat that's going on amongst yourselves, and that's cool. So I like that. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure. It looks like conversation going on between people, and that's cool. Do. Let's see here. Oh, yes. This is a good comment here. Joe, make sure to have that guy last night to reach out to DL for an episode of Dad Talk, either on X Twitter or his email in the show notes. So if you are like, hey, I know a dad that should be on your show, let me know. Liberty Dad Podcast at gmail.com, or you can just tap me on Twitter and be like, yo, this person over here, or here's their email, or some way. So reach out because I'm always looking for dads, as we'll hear coming up in the intermission, which will have all the details. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. I think that's all the comments here for right now. Low comment day. So let's go ahead and take an intermission here. And then what we'll do is when we come back, I'm going to read to you my friend's commentary. And then we're going to give you my final thoughts on this story so that we can all walk away, hopefully more informed and with better judgment. So let's go ahead and do that. Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right. I made a mistake earlier. I forgot to show you some of the commentary that happened in the town square. So let me show you some of the commentary, and then I thought that was I thought it was kind of interesting, and I like to put on the show what people are saying, right? So that you like I know some of you are really good people who stay off of Twitter and maybe social media altogether, and you are better off for that. But it's good to know, like, when you hear these stories, kind of like what's the consensus? And on this particular story, there was no actual consensus per se, but what are people saying? So here we go. Um, so here's some of the commentary. We got. This is how girls are conditioned, and then when they grow up, men will tell them women just naturally don't like fishing and sports. All right, let's see. Wait, he decided to exclude his daughter against his wife's advice. He said he would fix it when his decision inevitably hurt his daughter. Now he expects his wife to fix it for him. No wonder the daughter doesn't want to be around him. You. Okay. Let's see. It sounds more like the mother spent the time during the boys' trip turning her daughter against the father. But obviously she's not going to include that part in her narrative. Y'all read into these stories a whole lot, don't you? It sounds like that's just what you wanted to believe. Okay, he basically told her that he thought she was less than her brother and her cousin. Now he's half gonna he's half gonna have to deal with the fallout. Half gonna I'm not sure that works grammatically. But anyway, it sounds like neither the mother or daughter has ever heard the word no. And now they're both throwing a tantrum to triangulate against the father who wanted one weekend with his son and nephew. Wow. Well, all right then. They're triangulating. You guys, you some of these comments crack me up. He did it to himself. She warned him this would happen, and he didn't care. And now he expects her to fix it for him. Of course. Nope. Male victimhood. Okay. Like on both sides. Like it's just funny. Like both sides have crazy comments, whether you're supporting the dad or not. This is mom's fault. The boys need bonding time. That's normal. Mom is turning the daughter against the father by not being on his team about this and treating it like a no big deal that it is. Mom is not being a good example, in my humble opinion. Okay. Male only spaces are necessary for male development. Life doesn't revolve around malcontent women. I mean, if a daughter wants to hang out with her dad, doesn't get to hang out with her dad, does that make her really malcontent? I mean, I think there are malcontent women out there. I'm not sure you're malcontent because you didn't get to hang out with your daddy. Just throwing that out there. Let's see. My daughter, his son. This tells you everything you need to know about the mother. You know, I despise comments like this. People do all the time. They're like, this this one single post tells me everything I need to know about you. Does it? One post? I don't know how many posts I've made on social media, probably hundreds of thousands over like a couple of decades. I promise you that just one of them doesn't tell you everything you need to know about me, anything more than it tells you everything you need to know about somebody else, with very rare exceptions, right? Like if somebody gets on there and they're like, I want to do this very, very terrible thing to this, innocent person, that might tell you a lot. But just commenting on a story, telling you what happened, a one-sided narrative. I, I, come on, guys. Can we do better? Can we? You can. I just don't know if you will. You can't help noticing all the comments who say the father is an idiot, or they don't need, or they don't get the need for guy time, or by women. Imagine you and your mom needing to talk about getting your first period and dad says your 11-year-old brother gets to sit in on it. I um I I'm not even sure where to go with this one. Bro, seriously? That's the comparison you want to make? Dude, wow. He correctly thinks his daughter is a girl. Men and boys are allowed to have male bonding time. You don't need to insert yourself into everything. I mean, they already were together. The story goes they enjoyed for years having all this time together. This is not like, hey, yo, out of nowhere, I plan to insert myself into this. Like this was already the thing. All right, let's get to my friend's comment. It was a bit more rational because these people trip me out. All right, let's see what we got here. Let me pull it up on the screen. Is it on the screen yet? Why are we not? Why are things not working today? Who's running this show? I'm gonna have to get them. All right, let's see what we got here. Why is this? Oh, did I want to go here? Oh, I wanted to go here. That's what I wanted. Okay, let me do this. Why are things not cooperating? Uh, hello. There we go. All right. So this is my friend Avins. And if you're in the libertarian community, you probably already know her. If you are new to the libertarian community, you may not know her yet. And if you go to events, you'll have a good chance of meeting her because she goes to a lot of events and she does a lot of photography for various conventions and whatnot. And let me tell you something about Avin. She is Avins, actually, not with an S. She is a wonderful person. Okay. Like, of all the libertarians, there's like three nice ones and she's one of them. Okay. Like legitimately nice. I don't think I've ever seen her say anything mean to somebody else. Right. I mean, I'm sure she's capable of it. We're all human, but she's a genuinely nice person. And the other thing about her is I think she's a little bit more on the liberal side compared to me about life. Not necessarily a liberal, but just when it comes to when you're talking about different topics and the perspective that you take, I think she tends to take a little bit more of a liberal perspective. And that's cool. But all that aside, I really enjoy hearing. So when I see it, when I saw her respond to me, I was like, okay, let's read this because I respect this person. So let's read what she had to say. I think they're well within their rights to have a single sex bonding experience and that it's reasonable for the daughter to feel really hurt about it, especially if he ignored that she would feel hurt by it. I could be wrong, but it sounds like so like stop right there. Just stop. Just think about that right there, that first 4 words compared to everything we just read. She's like, I could be wrong, right? Like a little humility in these situations. Because again, as I said earlier, we're reading a one-sided narrative, and sometimes when people are upset, that changes how they portray the narrative. Not necessarily on purpose, but if I'm angry at you and I'm telling like let's say I get angry with my wife and then I'm ranting to a buddy. Like the way that I'm going to rant and tell the story is going to sound way different than if I'm calm and I'm like, dude, tell me what you think about this, right? Like I might be like, man, I can't believe she did that. She said that on purpose, rah, rah, and I'm going to be like super duper angry, you know? And so like when you have to take that into consideration, like what is the state of mind of the person telling the story? It's only one person of however many people were involved in the story. It's how they saw it. It's kind of like years ago, I saw a car crash on the way to an event with a friend, and we stopped to check and see if people were okay. Then we waited for the police to show up, and he gave he was sitting in my passenger seat, and when we talked to the police, he was like, "Yeah, this happened, this happened." I was like, "Wait, that's not what happened. Like, how did you?" And it was so like people see things differently. And we have to keep that in mind when we're reading these kind of stories on the internet. If they're even true. Like you never know. Like a lot of these things could like we could all be arguing amongst ourselves over a story that never happened. Although it seems like it could happen. Anyway, I could be wrong, but it sounds like the father dismissed that this might emotionally impact the daughter and didn't think to try to mitigate that hurt in advance. This is her father, and she felt rejected and less than for being born a girl. It sucks to feel treated that way based on something you have no control over. Right? Going on here. Of course, she shouldn't be expected to be included in everything, but his wife was pretty on point with the fact that the kid would feel hurt. And so perhaps planning a trip with the daughter might have been a good idea to start the conversation before the guy's trip. Maybe talking to her about safe men only and female only spaces would be valuable. Maybe coordinating with mom to do a girls' trip with the aunt. The same dates might have helped. Taking proactive steps to help the daughter not see it as rejection in advance would have helped so much. I absolutely respect single sex spaces, but kids are kids, and how their parents treat them differently than their siblings, especially along gender lines, does impact them. And at the very least, we should be mindful of that. Sorry, I didn't get that up all on the screen there. Okay. So, like, I think she's absolutely perceptive in this. 100%. She's absolutely correct. And it gave me something to think about. And I actually ended up rereading the story. And then I was like, all right, let me read the story now with Avin's comments in mind. And it tempered my perspective just a wee bit because I actually agree with her. And I'm going to take it a little bit further. And maybe if Avins ever watches this, maybe she'll agree, maybe she won't. Right. But here's where I am my final thoughts on the matter. Number one, father son time is absolutely necessary, as is father daughter time, as is father children time. So all those things that I said earlier, as is husband wife time, even just dad time, just mom time, and kids time, right? Like all of it, every one of those variations are absolutely important. Now, where I changed my view is saying dad was right, mom was wrong. And I'm actually kind of somewhere in between on that one. And the reason is because Ovens is correct. Dad should have worked to mitigate that before, not after. Because here's the deal. If you allow, like, think of it this way. On Monday, let's say I tell my son that I'm going to go do something that he would really like to do. Okay. And I say, no, you can't go because this is adults only. And he might say, well, I really want to go, daddy. And I'll go, well, I'm sorry, buddy. Maybe next time. Now he's automatically going to feel bad because he wanted to go and he's 6, right? And that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. However, he feels bad. And if I leave it at that, then what I'm doing is I'm allowing that feel bad to kind of fester within him and to go wherever it goes. Now, maybe he goes off and he plays and he just kind of forgets about it and it's no big deal. Maybe he just is like, ah, whatever. 5 minutes later, he's forgotten about it. And that happens. Maybe he thinks about it. Maybe while I'm gone, he starts thinking, oh, yeah, daddy's gone at this thing that I wanted to go to and I didn't get to go. Right. So now he gets to think about it more. Because here's the deal human people, like humans, like real people, and especially kids, as Ovens pointed out, they are going to feel how they feel. And it's up to the parents to help direct them. Now, you can't force them to feel in a certain way. But what you can do is help guide them. That is a parent's job. And if you wait until that feeling has grown, that's more of a negative feeling that you're going to have to deal with. So, in this particular story, presuming it's true, as it's written, the daughter is now pulling away from things that she used to do with them, right? So she's kind of in a sense, icing him out, like the mother said. And so now he has to deal with two things: the hurt feelings, which have grown, and the bitterness that comes along with it, the retaliation, if you will. So he's got to first break through the retaliation, right? And that's harder to do. And so that's a failing on his part and the mother's part because they are a team. So I'm going to say this. The mother was like, "All right, look, I'm going to agree to this, but you deal with it." Right. And I think in this, like sometimes that's appropriate. Hey, you deal with this. Uh, Other times it is a team effort. Children need a mother and a father because fathers offer something. There are differences between mothers and fathers. Right? Fathers have what they have a certain a level of how would you phrase it? They have certain feelings, attitudes, perspectives about the world that they can offer. Mothers offer something different. It's typical that you get the divide on masculine and feminine terms, but it's not always the case, right? Sometimes you got a mom that's maybe a little bit more masculine in a particular area and a dad that's not, right? But they balance each other out. That's the point of having two parent homes. So I look at it, I say the father should have never agreed to leaving it all in his hands, nor should have the mother have asked him to. They are a team. They should have agreed and they should have said, how are we going to manage this? And I think Ovens makes a really good point. He should have sat down and said, her name is Kelsey, sat down and said, all right, Kelsey, look, I know that we're used to doing all these things together. That's the other point that I think people missed. This story came about because the father, the son, and the daughter were used to doing things together sports, fishing, so on and so forth. Then all of a sudden, the nephew comes along who's not part of that group, and he gets to go on an event, presumably an event that is relatively new. Like maybe they haven't done this before. Maybe they've not done a father and just the kids trip. I don't know. But now all of a sudden, he gets to go and she doesn't. So I want you to think about like every movie, every teenage movie that we've ever seen where some girl or a guy is part of a group, the new kid comes in, they get all the attention, and in some way, whether intentional or not, one of the kids gets elbowed out. And how do they feel? Like that's exactly what happened here. This is like we literally read the script for a potential movie. Like you could make up a whole movie on this very story, right? And so I think that the dad should have absolutely sat down and had a conversation and worked it out and said something like, we're going to all go on a trip together. And here's what that is. And maybe made the trip either seemingly sound better or at least equal. Because again, we go from years and years of we're all a team, we go do things together to all of a sudden I'm not part of that team, but this newcomer is. And maybe the cousin isn't a total newcomer. I'm sure they probably know who their cousin is. But if their cousin moved from another state, as the story was told, then that means they were not used to the cousin being present. So it's basically the same effect as being an absolute newcomer. Hey, wait a minute. That's my spot. You're sitting in my chair. You're going with my brother, my dad. That's supposed to be me there, right? Now here's where I'm going to take the story and some people may not like it. I think the onus was actually on the dad for all of this. So I tend to be more conservative personally. And so I believe in the idea of a male figure being the head of the household. Dad. Now, I don't mean this in like dad has the final say and he always says, whatever he says goes and mom you be quiet, daughter you be quiet. Like none of that nonsense. So if that's where you think I'm going, excuse yourself from this conversation because I'm not. What I'm saying is part of being a leader means leading people. That means you have to make wise decisions and you have to think about these kind of things. From the story, it doesn't appear that dad thought about these things. It doesn't appear that he thought, "Hey, my daughter who always goes with us is going to be hurt. In fact, she's already showing signs of it. I better take care of this now." because if I don't take care of it now, it could be a problem later. And it's going to be a lot harder to deal with later than it is now. And I need to make sure that before I go on this trip, before that we are in good in our relationship is in good standing. And if you remember from the story, they went on the trip and they came back, and then she started icing him out, and then he tried to say, "Hey, we're going to plan a really cool trip." That no, like that's after you've already made the sting, right? Like, not only did you tell, "Hey, you're not get to go," but then you actually went, and then you decided to deal with it after the fact. No, that's not leadership. That's not what any if you believe that a man is the head of the household, you should actually be upset with the dad for not heading it off up front, because that's what a leader does. That is how you lead people. You observe them and you keep a keen eye open, and then you say, "I need to address this straight away," in a good way, right? And I think, and some of the comments where people were like, "Oh, the mom was against the dad and she was triangulating and all this." I don't you shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And you are giving absolutely terrible advice. This I don't see this story as necessarily uh, a battle of the sexes per se. I mean, it kind of falls into that territory, but I don't see it that way. I see it as a problem of leadership. First on the dad, then on the mom, right? When my there are times when I'm being a bit of a tyrant, right? Like I'm, being a little tough on my son. What does my wife do? She pulls me aside. She's like, "Hey, look, here's where I think you're missing." The other night, I'll tell you straight up because I like to be transparent. He was getting in some trouble. So when my son gets tired, he starts causing problems, and he starts doing things that just drive me crazy. I think he knows it does. And and so he was getting in trouble, and I was yelling at him. And and my wife texted me because I was upstairs and she was downstairs, and she texted me. She's like, "Hey, let me know if you need to tap out." Right? Like, let me know if you're getting to the point where you are no longer being the objective leader that you should be. Right? Which happens. Sometimes I got to be like, "Yo, you deal with this." And sometimes my wife does that. That's the whole point of a team. And so I think that they both failed in this because they really addressed it as if like your job, my job. No, it's both of yours job. And you as a mother should not want to see your daughter not only be hurt, but also you shouldn't want to see her, distance herself from her dad. You should want to do everything you can to prevent that. In as much as a dad would want the same. He wouldn't want one of the children, any of them, the son or the daughter, to distance himself from mom over a decision that she made that they didn't particularly care for. Because there will be decisions that your kids don't care for, and you do need to act as a team. But acting as a team, as unlike what many people said, does not always mean just siding with the other person. Sometimes my wife comes to me and she's like, "Look, I see I see your point. I understand it." And she kind of almost, in a way, kind of like how Avins responded to me. She was like, "Look, I get it. I agree on this level. Have you considered this perspective? Have you considered this element of the story?" My wife does the same thing sometimes. She'll say, "Hey, I get what you're saying, but I think there's something that you might be missing here. There's an element that's really important, and I think this might be the direction that we want to take this." So for me, again, guy time, girl time, absolutely necessary. Was the dad right in in thinking of an opportunity for guy time? I think in this story, he was, because remember, his sister-in-law is a single mom, which means that boy doesn't have a dad. So I think this is a really good thing for the nephew. But I think that the way that it was handled could have been better. So let me add One final quick story. This is not my story. This is something that I read from a book years and years ago, and it's always stuck with me. And I wish I could remember the book so I could cite it and tell it to you, but it was one of those like, you know, im I don't wanna say improve your masculinity, but it was like, you know, a story. It was a book where a man might read that and walk away thinking, "Okay, here's some better tips for me, so that I can be a better leader of this household." Right? It was one of those kind of books, like a self-help type book, but I hate to say self-help because that sounds like so I don't know, sounds just doesn't sound good. But, here's how the story goes. A mother was sewing up a dress, a brand new dress for her daughter. And she worked really hard on it, picked out all the right colors, and she finally got it finished. She calls the daughter in. They put the dress on. They get it all, they get it all on. They button it up and everything. And they're looking at it and they look in the mirror and the girl's twirling around. The mom's like, "Oh, you look so pretty." And then both of them stopped, looked at each other, and said at the same time, "Let's go see what daddy thinks." And then they rush out and they go, "Daddy, look at my new dress." And he goes, "Wow, you're a princess. You're so beautiful." It's a very short story. What's the takeaway from that? For people like me that believe that dads are supposed to be the leader of the family. And again, that does not mean everything he says goes. That means he has to make wise decisions. He has to lead the family. Sometimes the decisions that he will make will fall on where he believes. Sometimes he will say, "You know what? I believe this, but I think the better answer is what my wife has said or even what my child has said." Right? That's part of being a leader, considering everything. But in this story, even though the mother made this beautiful dress and she acknowledged that it's beautiful, and the girl could see that it was beautiful, she put it on. Anybody can put on an outfit and look in the mirror and say, "Wow, this really looks good on me." Anybody can do that. A child can do that. An adult can do that. But despite that, the final confirmation came from her daddy, right? Let's go see what daddy thinks. And I think this is the key for men out there. Is it's not bellicosity and getting the final word. It's leadership. It's knowing when to say when and about what. It's knowing when that, hey, maybe you're not being objective. Maybe your wife is correct. Maybe you need to reevaluate because we're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And there is no value in having two parents if the two parents aren't acting as a team in leadership in the best interest of the children and the family. There's no point in it. Like conservatives can say, "Oh, families need a mom and a dad." But then if they always just kind of fall on the dad side and say, "Oh, you what do you malcontent women wanting to be everywhere. Should we bring the boy in, to hang out with you while you're having your first period?" If that's your attitude, then you don't really mean it when you say that a man is to be the head of the household and the leader of the household. You don't really mean it when you say children need two parents, right? And I hate the term toxic masculinity. I don't think it's really a thing. But I would say that having those kind of attitudes, they are toxic. I wouldn't call it toxic masculinity, just toxic behavior, plain and simple. So that's where I land on this story. Let's get to some comments, and then we're going to head out of here, and we're going to enjoy this weekend because it's really cold. All right, let's check out some comments here. Let's see. Do. Looking through the comments. One of the things that I used to like so I'm using Rumble Studio, which is great, and I encourage anybody that's podcasting to use it. But one of the things that I do like about StreamYard is that when I'm going through the comments, I can actually like click on them and like star them, and they'll show up into like a little different section of the app, and then it allows me to come back to them later. It makes it easier to sort them out. Otherwise, I have to try to like on the fly read them and then hope that I'm picking up great ones. So tough. getting my words jumbled here. Tommy, the coffee addict, says Avens is great. She really is. She's a great and wonderful soul. So if you get a chance to meet her, you will be better off for it. Do. Um, Joe Hanoush says, DLL talking about you, me, and Avens being the three nice libertarians talking to that Liberty lady. Perhaps, perhaps. I'm not going to try to nail it all down on who. I'll just leave it at Avens is one of them. Let's see. Yes, she is a bird mom as well. I'm not particularly into birds or cats or anything other than dogs, but hey, it's all good. Everybody's got to have their thing, right? Let's see here. Not gonna. Okay, I don't want to put this on the screen because we're naming names here. But a comment in here says somebody told their husband, "My job is bringing money into the house. Your job is the kids." They had two boys. So, like, that's a toxic attitude, right? Like, my wife's job isn't to do any one thing, nor is my job to do any one thing. We are here as a team and we work together to make this family great. Not again, just great, because the family's always been great. And we will end it on this comment here because this is good. By Kagella. People follow a leader by choice. If you, as a man, speaking to you men out there, if you are being a great leader, guess what? Your wife and your children will follow you. If you are on the job and you are in leadership, if you are being a great leader, your team will follow you. If you are anywhere where you are being a leader, if you are being a great leader, your kids, I'm sorry, dang it, that was like going to be a really good clip too. People will follow you if you are being a good leader. All right, folks, let's head on out and I will see you Monday. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.